Blog Talk Radio.
The motherfucking saga continues.
Yo, what's up, world? It's badass thuggin' like I usually do, and you better turn it up, bust some speakers out, cause we off the motherfucking cuff. You dig how we do it? Dogbound Gangsters 2000 and beyond. Bless.
What's up with it, y'all? Man, don't change that down. This your player partner, the legendary Cocaine. And you tuned in live to Off the Cuff Radio. Better not touch that down. Well.
Yeah, this is Cassidy, the hustler. And right now, you listening to the Guillotine. Show them the respect they deserve, man. Off the Cut Radio, man. Y'all already know how they doing it, man. I need y'all to stay tuned. They've been doing it for years, so show them the respect they deserve. And you heard it out of bars, mouth. Easy.
Keep it moving like this. Yo, this your boy Rampage. You're not rocking with the best. With Off the Cuff Radio. Classic. History. Fix your face to all you haters. We off the cuff, baby.
What's up, everybody? This your girl, Bonnie Dollars, the Queen of Trap, representing Crenshaw, and you are now tuned in with Off the Cuff Radio. What's up?
What's up, y'all? This is Miss Irresistible, giving a shout out to the live show on Friday nights, Off the Cuff Radio, and I'm live from the 704. Make sure y'all tune in for the blazing hot music.
What it ain't, what it do. Chili Chill from that original Lynch Mob. And Off the Cuff Radio is always where it's at on Friday nights. West, y'all.
All right, we are here at episode 596 of Off the Cuff Radio. I'm your host, King Eric, the Media Assassin, and this show is sponsored by Buddy Boy Entertainment, Screwball Radio, Da Vinci Clothing. Got my host, T-Max, with the facts on the line.
What it do, man. Look, we are live and direct on that OTC Fresh Frequency, 596, and we are getting it. Shout out to our co-host, the Spirit of a lot of fan, man, Lady Chinchilla. Of course, shout out to DJ Sincere for Dirty Basement Radio up in New York. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most legendary shows we have. As we close in on 600, there is no other way to close out that chapter than to have, in our audio history, one of the most prolific authors ever in the history of hip-hop culture. This man has dedicated, for the better part of 2 decades, to documenting, filming, discussing anything you can think about the culture that has to be preserved in terms of how it is in the written word and video. This man credentials are legendary. He is an author. He is a producer. He is an entrepreneur with his own company, Unique Access Entertainment. He has been the part of writing or co-writing over 10 books, most recently being the Chronicles of the Juice Man, written along with Juicy J. He's also written a history of gangster rap with Schoolie D to Kendrick Lamar, The Rise of a Great American Art Form on Abrams' book, and, of course, with Gucci Mane, the Gucci Mane Guide to Greatness. This man's history is a living testament to excellence, to experience, to emancipation, to not being constrained, and to expression of all things in the art. And he's also written for Double XL and the Source magazines. This man's credentials are too many to mention, and we got to get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary, the incredible, the incomparable, the illustrious, Superscribe himself, one of Xavier University's finest graduates in terms of distinguishedness, Soren Baker. Welcome to Off the Cuff Radio.
Man, King Eric and T-Max, man, thanks for that intro. And, man, you made me sound incredible, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Soren, it's been a long time coming. We are so honored to have you. Let's get to it. Your history in itself is a book of greatness. Let's start from the beginning. Tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, man. Well, I was born and raised in Maryland. And, when I was about 10 years old, I had heard some rap and really liked it. And I just happened to ask one of my friends, his name was Tom Erdely. I was like, yo, Tom, man, you know anything about this rap stuff? You got any rap? And, this is way back in the day, so there's no real rap on the radio, not much. It's hard to find videos and all that. And he was like, oh, man, there's plenty of rap. But I didn't know. I'm living in Maryland. My parents are school teachers. I didn't have any knowledge or connection to anyone in the music industry. And so he's like, oh, I'll make you a tape. And so he made me this mixtape, and it had Nightmares by Dana Dane. It had LL Cool J, I Need a Beat. It had The Show by Dougie Fresh and Get Fresh Crew featuring MC Ricky D. It had UTFO, Roxanne. It had Big Mouth, Houdini, You Talk Too Much, Run the MC, Curtis Blow, Basketball. So it had all these great songs on it. And my love for rap exploded, and that day it became my favorite thing in the world. And I was just like, I got to learn everything I can about rap. I got to figure it out. I got to find out. I got to understand what's going on, because this music is incredible. I love the scratching. I love the stories. I love the humor. Houdini had Freaks Come Out at Night. That was another crazy story. So, I mean, it's just all these amazing songs. And right there, I was just like, this is it. And by the time I was 12, I've been studying rap at that point then for 3 years. And I was like, man, I got to figure out somehow to be involved in this, because this music is amazing. And when I got to college, I went to Xavier University in Cincinnati, as you mentioned, and I asked them about writing for the school newspaper, because I noticed they didn't cover rap at all. And they were like, yeah, but you got to review some plays first. So I went and reviewed one play for them, and then after that, I was like, okay, can I write about rap now? They're like, sure. So then my first thing I ever wrote about rap for the Xavier Newswire was an album review for Ed O.G. and the Bulldogs, Roxbury 02119 album. So been moving ever since.
Man, when you look at it, Soren, we're all, within that realm of the hip-hop era where, videos, were really the thing. And, of course, later on, publications like, of course, shout out to John Blasingame, Word Up Magazine. He's the one who started the first rap publication. Right On Magazine, of course, later on, Source, Double XL, Vibe, Rap Pages, Murder Dog, countless others. When you look at the culture from its inception and how it grasped you, how you were just enamored and just totally immersed in it, what stood out to you the most in terms of expressions of it, especially from an art that at the time had not fully morphed into this worldwide cultural phenomenon that it is today?
Well, I was really impressed with almost every aspect of it. I loved the sound of scratching. I didn't, because I hadn't really seen any videos at that point, so I didn't understand how it was made or really what it was. But I was very enamored with the sound of the scratching, and a lot of those songs I mentioned have a lot of scratching on it. And then I didn't realize this until later, but I don't know if it's because I grew up in Maryland and also listened to a lot of go-go. Excuse me. But I was a big fan of percussion, and a lot of the rap that was coming out in this era, 1985-ish, was very percussion, drum-driven, and it always has been really since then, with drum machines and sampling and different stuff. So I love the drums, I love go-go, I love the scratching, but then I love the stories, because Roxanne was funny, but it also kind of didn't make them out to be superheroes. They were getting played by Roxanne. And I liked Dana Dane, Nightmares, because it was him being afraid and trying to figure out what was going on. And, I'm a little kid. I'm 10, 11 years old. And so I had tried to get at girls that didn't like me, or I had nightmares, or like Curtis Blow, I played basketball. So I knew people that had big mouths or talked too much. So, and at this point I was loving music, so I needed a beat. I could relate and identify with so many of these songs and it was a lot of things that I had thought about or I had experienced or that I really enjoyed or that I found interesting, and it really hit me in a way that the other pop music at the time, either the super pop stuff or the rock and roll or whatever that was happening, I just didn't connect with in the same manner. So I like the confidence of it, I like the humor of it, and I also like the creativity of the stories.
Yeah. And when you look at that era, man, you think about it, Def Jam, of course, in the 80s, Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons, of course, Sugar Hill Records, with Sylvia Robinson back in the late 70s, rappers like Sugar Hill Gang. So we saw from 78 to 1984, 85, within a 5-6 year period, a morphing, of course. And it went through different iterations. When you look at the history of it, there's considered many different golden eras. From 85 in its true exception, of course, with Houdini, like you said. Of course, LL Cool J, of course, coming to later 80s. Of course, with Public Enemy, KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions, Slick Rick, Big Daddy Kane. The list goes on. We still haven't got into, we could say that too, later on with the Juice Crew, Marley Marl, with Master Ace, Cool G Rap, Biz Marquee. It just went on. In terms of hip-hop culture as it took form, as it took the nation by storm, because it painted a very vivid depiction of life in the street. There's an intrinsic link between hip-hop and the streets because it did come from it. When you saw how it really, when did you really see it from your eyes as it really began to catch on into society in terms of the fashion and the lingo, in terms of, how did, from your experience, when you really saw it take hold in terms of where people really began to embrace it and you saw more and more people really aspire to follow in that vein of the music and within the culture?
Well, it's interesting because in Maryland, I noticed that, Maryland's a very diverse area, but it's also a very black area, especially the D.C., Baltimore area, and I grew up right in between them. So, once the videos really came out and people could see the clothing, I think that really, the 1988, 89 era, I think had a lot to do with the fashion and the culture catching on, especially in our area, because we weren't creating rap like that. We had go-go, and then around the time or soon thereafter, we started getting more and more rappers that would rap with go-go bands or that tried to be artists on their own. And I had the pleasure of interviewing Stinky Dink, for instance. He was signed to Effect Records with Luke. He had a One-Track Mind song, but he was one of the guys that broke through. We had DC Scorpio, DJ Cool, of course, but a lot of them were our local heroes and showed like you could make it. But as far as the fashion and all the culture and stuff, all of that was coming from a lot of the videos, and of course in DC and in Baltimore with all the HBCUs, we had people from all over the country coming through, and especially in New York, and they would be bringing a lot of the music down, and a lot of the rappers were coming to DC and to Baltimore and bringing it with them. So, it was a lot of the hustlers, the drug dealers, the street dudes, and all that. So seeing all that and growing up, I didn't grow up in the hood or anything, but that was all not too far away. It was close to me. And there were dudes that dabbled in the streets where that went to my school and everything like that. So I saw a lot of it right there. And that was happening, as early as I could tell as a little kid, when I started understanding what rap was, when I was 12, when I was 13. So, but that was more of, I would say, in the black community, the urban community, and I saw it really changed for me in the first way, not as much with the dress and stuff, but just the acceptance and the awareness. It really was the Chronic in 92, because I remember it came out in December of 92, and I remember being at this party where there were a lot of the white kids from my school were at, and they played the Chronic. And I'd been to lots of parties and events and stuff, and I'd never heard them voluntarily play a rap album. And I didn't ever ask them, and I didn't understand it, but man, that to me was a big shift. And then when I went to Cincinnati the next year in '93, I noticed that, you know, the Chronic, and then when Doggy Style came out that fall as well, rap was embraced by the white kids that didn't, quote unquote, dress like hip hop culture. They didn't really participate in it really, but they were starting to want to listen to it more and more in a way that I had never seen prior to 1992.
Yeah. And when we think about it, the Chronic was a watershed moment because, of course, the Chronic was monumental because this was something that, of course, NWA, of course, you know this history as well. NWA was the one that really brought gangster rap to the forefront, albeit they were not the first gangster rappers. Schoolie D was, you know, which Ice-T will follow, which Ice-T will tell you that he got his style from Schoolie D, you know, and then, of course, NWA was the group that really brought it to the forefront. You know, it was just a raw power that we had not heard. So, of course, with Dre being part of that collective, then we all know the story about what happened and then Dre going solo. When we first heard about it, that there was a possible Dre solo album coming, we were just like, whoa. And then when the Chronic drops, oh my, fall of 1993 was never the same, especially when we saw that video for Nothing But a G Thing. Oh my God. I mean, it literally, you know, you're talking about a West Coast album. It was not only a Stone Cold classic on the West Coast, but was embraced everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere in the country and it was not played. From New Jersey to Northern California, the Chronic had literally everybody, you know, it was that loud before we knew what loud was. And it was proud of everything that the West Coast embodied. And it was just monumental. I mean, we heard in 1992, the summer, with the deep cover song, you know, 187, you know, with, you know, this then new, you know, dude from Tall as Fuck, you know, dude named Snoop Dogg from Long Beach. And we were like, whoa. And then it was just incredible. As a lot of us who grew up in that era.
The rest was history.
Yeah, and we just tell, and not that we're the old men screaming off the hill, but we just tell the youngins today, you just had to have been there to really understand the impact of what it was in terms of how.
It was a dramatic and an amazing time.
Yeah. Now, when you look at it, Soren, this record, you know, the Chronic had come pretty much on the heels of where gangster rap had really become a big thing. Of course, in the mid-'80s, late 80s, we had the Black Power movement, the Black Pride movement. Of course, with KRS, Nefertiti, Miss Melody, rest in peace. You know, X-Clan. You know, of course, the Native Tongues. Shout out to De La Soul, Moni Love, Queen Latifah, Tribe Called Quest, Jungle Brothers. I mean, who can forget the Buddy remix that is just, oh my goodness. Hip-hop was in a very, what some would say, a fun and carefree time, and when gangster rap came to the forefront, that's when it got more serious from the street element, because we had never heard stories told like that before. As you saw the evolution, the paradigm shift, Soren, what did you think in terms of just where the direction was, and how did this influence you to dedicate your life to writing about the culture from there?
Well, the interesting thing is, because I love rap from everywhere in all styles and all forms, gangster rap, of course, I knew and loved it, and I knew it was the dominant form of rap, but since I had been listening to rap before gangster rap really exploded, thanks to Schoolie D, it wasn't like that was the only thing to me or the only thing I liked. And in fact, I like all rap essentially equally. So it didn't really register with me in the sense that, yes, I knew NWA was super influential, and NWA had changed the game as far as the popularity, building on what Schoolie D and Ice-T had done, and even Boogie Down Productions and Just Ice, of course. But what I didn't understand or appreciate in real time was that, yes, I knew more and more artists were cussing and saying gang stuff and all of that, but I didn't understand that was going to be the permanent change of it in so many ways. Because when we have, in 94, when Outkast came out with other playlists of Cadillac Music, to me that was the next major shift, and I think that shift is still where we are now with the South dominating, and the South, has, it's a bigger region, it has more cities, it has more styles than what LA did, and gangster rap in particular, and then everybody was putting their own twist on it because the South is a massively huge region with multiple cities and had been active, obviously, even before the West Coast really started dominating in 89. But all that to be said, the dedicating my life to it, that really was when I was 12, and that was long before I started writing. I didn't do my first articles till I was 19, so I had 7 years of thinking, plotting, planning, imagining, man, I want to meet Schoolie D, man, I wish I could talk to Ice-T, man, I'm sure Cube is super intelligent if I really got to meet him. And so by the time I got to start talking to these dudes and even the women, that's when, like they say, the dream, you live in a dream. That's something that happened for me because I was just excited. And then as I got into the writing, I started realizing that, I'm from Maryland and I'm not from New York. So people that are from New York want to write about the New York artists almost exclusively. So that afforded me the opportunity to really get opportunities to interview the 8-Ball and MJGs of the world, the people from the Midwest, the people from the South, the people from the West Coast. And that enabled me to really talk to a lot of the artists I grew up admiring and liking, but then also really spend time with them, because back in those days, when I would either talk to them on the phone, or then when I started getting flown around, or when I moved to LA and would actually get to sit down with the artists, I would spend a lot of time with them. I'm talking like at least an hour or two, but sometimes I'd spend a day or two with the artists. So that's how I was able to form relationships with the artists, with the people that work with the artists. And then thankfully they liked my work for the most part. So then that enabled me to, have the career that I have today. So I've been very fortunate.
Man, one thing about
it. And you care to tell us about what sorry for butting in, man. I'm dealing with this flu still, man. But bear with me, y'all. I might cough a little bit if I'm asking questions, but I'm doing the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
But going into working with the Source, man, do you care to tell our audience what that time period was like in terms of the day-to-day operations?
Well, I had two very different times of writing for the Source. I started writing for the Source in 95 when I was in college at Xavier University in Cincinnati. So I was freelancing, and back in those days, in 95, I had to fax my articles in because I wasn't in New York. So I got to shout out DJ ICD, who was in Cincinnati at the time, and then Usman Sam from the Street Team, and then Dario Strange, my editor. Those are the first people I started working with. Yeah. So, I was doing everything over the phone at that point initially. And then I got a job at Rap Pages once I graduated, and I moved to LA for that, and I stopped writing for the Source. Then in 2003, I got a full-time job with the Source, but I stayed in LA, and they would periodically fly me to New York to work on the issues. But I was never in the office day to day. I was never, I would be on the phone almost every day with people, or we'd have weekly meetings and this and that. But I don't know the day-to-day. I was in the office for a week at a time at the most. So I have a little bit of a different experience, but I can't speak on all day, every day. But I can say it was very different than Rap Pages, which was owned by Larry Flint at the time when I worked at it, and it was very corporate.
Wow. Yo, I did not know that.
Yeah. So it was. The office at the time was in Beverly Hills, so it was off of La Cienega and Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills, and it was a very corporate office. Even though Larry Flint had majority porn magazines, he had the magazine. I didn't wear like a polo shirt and slacks to the office, which was crazy because I'm like, one, we're a rap magazine, why I got to do that? And then two, you guys are a porn empire. Why does it matter if I want to wear a T-shirt and shorts? But they just told me, nah, you got to dress up a little bit. So then when I went to work with The Source, one, I was working from home, but then two, when I would go to the office, and I had been there several times at that point, but, you can show up there wearing a T-shirt and shorts, and that's just what everybody was wearing, unless it was cold, so that was much more what I like to wear on a day-to-day basis. But it was also more wild, people be, smoking weed or drinking or doing all kinds of stuff that, definitely was not happening at Larry Flint, but also not happening anywhere else that I went. So it was definitely a much more wild experience than, I also wrote for the LA Times for 10 years, and, that was a very corporate environment. So when you're coming into The Source, it was definitely like a parallel universe.
Absolutely. And one thing about it too, Soren, we also, and if you want to, if you're comfortable talking about it, because we know about the situation about what was going on with Almighty RSO, with Benzino, about what was happening to Source Magazine during that time. You were part of that staff, maybe albeit not there every day, but you did, probably have some ears to what was going on there. We'll get into that in a second. When you talk about, and we would be remiss because we talked about so much of the history in hip hop with different ages, where you talk about the language and what was being said, but there is one hero of the culture that he is criminally not mentioned at times, who championed for everyone to have the free speech. It's our favorite uncle, Luther Campbell, a.k.a. Luke Skywalker of 2 Live Crew, Luke Records versus Navarro, 1992, the state of Florida case, state Supreme Court, which ruled that the album As Nasty As They Want to Be was not legally obscene. Because we got to think about it, Soren and King. Had that ruling gone against it, hip-hop would be in a very different place today, because you figure the states would have had the right to censor what these artists say, which would have been in direct conflict with the First Amendment of the Constitution about free speech will not be, censored. It's part of the first 10 amendments, which are known as the Bill of Rights. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When you look at it, Soren, from that side of it, how important is it just in general? Because The Source and Rap Pages, and I'm still bugging that you told me that Larry Flint ran, that was part of the Hustler Empire, because I had no idea. Much love. Rest in peace to the legend, the Don, the icon, the man who fought for free speech just as much as anybody, and expression, Larry Flint. We love you from the Hip Hop Nation. How important was that? And as you as a writer who's been so proficient, so prolific penning it, how important is that for the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press to document, to write, to express, to detail?
Well, I think it's immensely important because what Luke and 2 Live Crew were going through was, like you said, it went to the Supreme Court. This was a major issue in our country. It wasn't just relegated to the rap world, because the repercussions, had they lost, would have been massive. And if you remember, I was very impressed and pleasantly surprised that during this whole situation, the Two Live Crew, they had made the Band in the USA song playing off of Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. And the reason that meant so much to me is because Ronald Reagan had tried to use Born in the USA on one of his campaigns, and that song is very anti-Republican. It's anti what Reagan stood for. And Bruce Springsteen sued him and got him to remove it because he didn't approve it. Yet Bruce Springsteen sided with the Two Live Crew and gave them permission to sample Born in the USA. That was a big song and a big single, and they were talking about the censorship battles. So right there, it showed the magnitude of what Two Live Crew was doing, but then beyond that, in my opinion, it would have been terrible for rap because you had the reality of what Schoolie D, what KRS-One, what Just Ice, what Ice-T, what NWA, what Ice Cube, Compton's Most Wanted, MC8, DJ Quick, on and on and on and on. The stories they were telling, the Ghetto Boys, and the things that they were rapping about were so important and so valuable because it was the voice of the voiceless. It was an opportunity for the disenfranchised, that disenfranchised segment of our population to be able to articulate their frustration, their anger, their rage, their pain, and to be able to do it in a very powerful way to where people that didn't grow up in that environment can understand and appreciate it in a way that someone like me was able to, because growing up in Maryland, where I did, we didn't have gangs, on every corner, and we didn't have the drive-bys all over the place. But when I would go into Baltimore, when I would go into D.C., everything that those dudes were rapping about, that's what was happening, and I saw it. And when I would go play basketball, whether in high school or playing AAU or whatever, I would see, okay, this is what they're talking about. When I would turn on the news to watch the Baltimore news or the D.C. news, I would see it on TV. When I'd read the newspaper, I saw it. So I knew what these guys were talking about was reality. That's why they called it reality rap. I knew it was street reporting, and it was not the street reporting we were getting from the news or the newspaper. It was a parallel universe, a different world, but we needed rap, unfortunately, to be able to highlight that because the other channels we had through the media or through entertainment were not providing the insight that Schoolie D did, that Ice-T did, that NWA did, that Boogie Down Productions did, that Just Ice and other people did, that were telling these stories. And that's why when it came to Two Live Crew, it was essential that they won, because as we've seen now with a lot of the rise of the radical right, they don't want us to say what people think. They don't want us to have freedom of speech, really. They want to censor stuff unless it's what they want you to know. And they don't want people to know, as you say, actual facts. They don't want that. They want their story, which is not the real story. Or it's a very slanted story. And so that's why I think it was extraordinarily important that the Two Live Crew was able to emerge victorious in their censorship case.
One thing about it, y'all, when we look at the era of expression, because, Two Live Crew was never gangster rappers, although Luke, and I got to meet him last summer, one of the coolest dudes ever, just a humble guy. He's really from the streets, though, and that's what people don't understand. It's just the type of hip-hop they were doing was definitely more of the party rap and, just celebrated having a good time. I mean, we look at that era of Miami in the 80s. I mean, it was really, palm trees and the cocaine cowboys and a whole bunch of booty shaking and strip clubs. So that particular part of the culture was something that, was, we had never heard anything like that, like where gangster rap came into the forefront. The one thing about it is when people try to talk negative about it, they look at it as gangster rap being the cause of what goes on with the violence in America rather than the effect of it. that is an expression because hip-hop came from the streets. You know, it was birthed by black and brown people who felt marginalized and that had not have a means of expression, you know. Like you said, to hear the media, they would have everything homogenized and let you believe that nothing negative is going on, especially in urban communities. But that's where a lot of the troubles come. Conversely speaking, where the troubles come, that is where, from hard times, the rose of genius grows in the garden of concrete and births so many geniuses, so much talent, so many entrepreneurs, so many people that, if, like Busta Rhymes once said, if it wasn't for hip-hop, a lot of us wouldn't have jobs. So it's an essential element in the fabric of diversity that makes this country great from all aspects of people from all walks of life who are able to contribute in their own way from every culture, no matter where they are from. As you got into the writing part of this, Soren, what did you find in terms of getting to interact? Because you've written forewords, you've written, you know, I mean, your career is incredible. I mean, you've written forewords for Tupac, NWA, Gangstar, you know, liner notes, everything. I mean, to interact with these people, what was your experience like? Tell us the first big assignment that you got of one of the artists you got to meet.
Well, the craziest thing is the first group that I ever interviewed was the Fugees. So after my freshman year in college, they were touring, opening up for Queen Latifah, and they were performing in Baltimore at a club called Hammerjacks. And I had started reaching out to all the labels, and one of the label reps in Cincinnati knew the person that was working on the tour or something. And the bottom line is I got to go to Hammerjacks in Baltimore and interview the Fugees as my first interview ever. Now, this is when the Nappy Heads remix had come out. So they were still on the Blunted on Reality
Shout out
album.
to Salon Remy for the remix. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were opening for Queen Latifah. So that just shows that it was early in the game, but I was very excited. And my shout out to my parents, and my mom had showed me a thing in the Baltimore Sun that there was going to be a Haitian government official that was going to be in, for some reason, on the radio in Baltimore that night. So when I went during the day to interview them before the show, I ended up giving it to Praz, but I gave Praz this little cutout of the announcement of the Haitian government official, and he seemed like blown away. But I was like, yeah, man, you know, I told my mom about you guys, and then she saw that this Haitian guy was going to be on the radio, and he seemed like genuinely, like really blown away that I brought that to him. But that was just one of the things that it was just a testament of caring about the music, caring about the people that are making the music, and trying to tell the audience what makes these artists special and distinctive and important. And, you know, I got to give a credit to my parents. That's how they raised me to be as a person, to treat and talk to everybody like that. So when I started writing, I wanted to bring that same type of insight, courtesy, and respect to what I was writing. And that's why I never really got into any of the crazy blogging or the, you know, the slander or salaciousness stuff, because to me, everything that I have done has been driven by loving the music and loving being around it and growing to be a part of it. It was always driven by pure love of it and just gratitude to be able to participate in it, which is something I thought about, you know, when I was a 12-year-old kid. So, very fortunate.
And that's important. The written word, people have to understand, writing is a very intimate art, and especially when you are writing about other people, it's a very personal one as well, because when people entrust you in an interview or even writing a book, they're entrusting you with their history, their legacy, their personal life, because you spend a lot of time with these people in terms of getting to know who they are as individuals. And what you are going to express in the written word is basically telling a story of who they are. When you got to, and I'm wondering, when you were that government official, was that John Bertrand Aristide that you initially had a picture of, or you don't remember the time?
No, I don't remember. I was too
understood.
excited,
Gotcha.
man, because I was like, I was excited and nervous. I was like, man, this is my first interview. I'm meeting him in person. I'm going, it's the dream, the first time of achieving that part of my dream. So, yeah, I don't remember who the official was.
All good. Now, the Fugees, it was a unique experience. Of course, Lauryn Hill, most notable, coming from Columbia University, of course, being in a group. Of course, their first album, Blend on Reality, came out in 1994. We can speak on this freely because it's kind of known. The album was a very mixed bag, especially with the lead single, Blue Staff. A lot of people didn't know what to make of it when it first dropped. However, the Nappy Heads remix, with Salah Remy on the production, was the game changer because that really got people looking like, they got something, which would in turn, for their next label deal, they had complete creative control. I believe they had a budget like $125,000, $150,000 on it. Some crazy amount at the time, but basically they got that money and they had complete control, which would lead to the album, The Score. When you first got to meet them, Soren, did you know that they were going to be headed for the legendary status that they ended up achieving?
Nah, I didn't know, see, or appreciate or would have predicted that. The one thing I will say, though, I noticed with when they started doing the remixes, I realized that they had a chance to achieve their potential because I realized seeing them perform, Wyclef was playing a guitar, which of course at the time was very unusual to see with rap, and Lauryn obviously is, a renowned singer, and Wyclef was singing, so they had all these different elements. The Nappy Heads remix was also big, and in Maryland especially, and then of course on the video channels, Rap City, UMTV Raps, they would play those songs a lot. So I could tell that they were gaining some momentum, and I thought, maybe they would graduate to having a gold record the next album, or, at least they would have a shot. But yeah, there's no way I would have said, oh yeah, they're about to be the biggest thing in rap history or one of the biggest groups ever. No, I would definitely have not have thought that.
Got you. When you speak on the video shows, Soren, how big was video culture in terms of the shows like Rap City, The Box, the OMTV Raps? Because we want to get into the part about the magazines. We can't forget that, because we can't write that history about you without writing about those contributions you made that are abundant. But how did video culture play in terms of the marketing of the videos back in the day? And what did it mean to be an artist and have a video not only shot from, getting that budget from the company, from the label, but actually getting it played on a outlet?
Yeah, well, I got to probably bounce after this one. But
okay.
I talked about this in my book, The History of Gangsta Rap, with DJ Quick, and he really broke it down rather eloquently. And he was explaining that, anytime one of his videos played for Quick Is the Name, his album sales started going up. And I noticed that, generally speaking, when an artist would have 2 or 3 videos, especially once we're getting into 1989, 1990, that's when you could tell that the album was really connecting because the label was willing to invest the time and the energy and the money to promote the artist. So that was a big change because initially in the early to mid 80s, first of all, there weren't that many rap albums, and then a lot of the artists would sign single deals. Like, for instance, Dana Dane had a single deal with Profile Records. That's why Nightmares came out in 85, but Dana Dane with Fame didn't come out till 1987, partially because he signed a singles deal. And then back then, right. So they had to see how Nightmares did. Then he had to do an album deal. Then he had to record the album, and then they had to put it out, and all that stuff back then took time. It wasn't like he just went in right out the gate in 84, 85 and started making an album. No, he did a single. And that showed the growth and evolution and development. So by the time we get to 91 and Quick's putting out Quick is the Name, and now the labels are signing more artists, they're understanding that they can go gold or platinum, within reason. That's when the floodgates opened and the videos became so much more important, because in that time, rap still wasn't big on the radio. It was ironically, it was the video shows that were more popular and more important, because generally speaking, that's where you were going to see and hear the new rap. You weren't going to see and hear it, or you weren't going to hear it really that much on the radio, especially you weren't going to hear such diversity like we saw. Like growing up in Maryland, they weren't playing a lot of West Coast rap on the radio, but I could see DJ Quick videos. I could see Compton's Most Wanted videos. I could see NWA videos. I could see Above the Law videos. I could see King T videos. I could see Ice-T videos. I don't ever remember hearing any of those artists on the radio, though, but I saw all their videos. And that was a big difference, because other than from reading in the source, or like you were saying, Word Up or Right On or what have you, I would have never known those records existed unless I only went in the record store, but then I'd be like Russian roulette, like what am I picking? Totally random. But I could see the videos, I could hear the songs, I got to know who the artists were, and then it's like King T, I didn't know all of his history right out the gate, so then I was able to do more research and find out about it. So just all that type of stuff. But yeah, I gotta bounce anything before I go.
Soren, we appreciate you. We love you for everything you've done. We respect you. Thank you. Oh, Doug Young used to work with Ruthless and Death Row Records. He sends a special shout out to you. You interviewed him for your book of gangster rap. He says, "What's up?" Good friend of ours. Soren, Soren, this has been incredible. You are welcome back anytime. When you're ready to do a part 2, we are here. It took a long time to make it happen, but thank you. Thank you so much. Shouts out to your mom and dad for birthing a legend. Shout out to you and your family, your lovely wife. Everybody, man. We appreciate you. Thank you again so much.
Yeah. And I'll shout out my daughter Lauren, too, since you got most everybody. But, I appreciate you guys. King Eric, T-Max, thanks so much for having me on Off the Cuff Radio, and look forward to doing it again soon. So thank you.
Absolutely. Peace and blessings, man, and until next time, thank you again.
All right, y'all. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Brother King, take us out of here, family.
On that note, we up out of here. Catch y'all next week.
Yep. Peace. One.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.